Hey, welcome to Let's Talk About It.
Oh, you wanna talk? Okay then. Baby, just say that up to drunk.
Hey everyone.
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back to our second episode of Let's Talk About It. We're so excited for our second episode. It's going to be very, very exciting. We have a good one for you guys today.
Yes, we're very, very excited. And also just a quick note, thank you so much for all the love on the first video. This is so exciting. This is real. This is actually happening.
So real.
I know, it's very exciting.
I don't think we anticipated the amount of support we got. So, I mean, thank you so much. It means the world to us.
Yeah, I mean, if we had 10 viewers, if we had, 200, like whatever it is, all love. We love you all. And thank you so much for listening and for coming back for this one.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back.
So this week, we have a very, very important topic that we're going to cover. We are covering DEI.
DEI.
It's gonna
be hot in the news recently.
Hot in the news, topic, but a very important topic, I think. Yeah.
For sure.
And so we're just going to get straight into it.
Yeah.
And so let's break down a little bit about what DEI means. And then, further along in the segment, we're going to talk about the controversies, we'll say, in the media.
Yes.
So first of all, what is DEI? DEI basically stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, if you ever hear about DEI in the media or in politics, they're probably referencing DEI policies. So governments have tried to implement DEI policies in the workplace, in education circles, in the government itself, the federal or provincial, or even in the states. They're state, I don't know what that's called. And so when you look at DEI policies, what are they meant to do? DEI is meant to eliminate workplace barriers and discrimination, but it does, again, like I said, go further than the workplace. DEI is also meant to eliminate barriers in society that impacts underrepresented groups. And you might ask, okay, well, guys, what's an underrepresented group?
Yeah.
And very simply, an underrepresented group is just a group in society that you might not see a lot in various, whether it be workspaces, especially in leadership, maybe in the media, or maybe in governance. So this can be racial groups, this can be gender-based groups, so like women. This can be sexualities, so the 2S LGBTQ plus community, and also impacts a person's ability. So if you are immobile, or you have a mobile disability, or even a mental disability, those kind of all again fall under the umbrella of what would be covered under DEI.
Yes, yeah. And I think we'll get into it in a minute when we're kind of talking about the common myths and, myth versus reality when it comes to DEI. But these ideas of having like policies, for one, it can include having, if you have like training, let's say like your employer has to go through training before a series of hiring, or even just, being in charge of a workplace, let's say. It can also include, something as simple as accessible signs. Like when you press that sign to have the door open automatically, that is DEI.
Yes.
Like that's something that is there to help and support people underneath these underrepresented groups.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I feel like we've covered
DEI. I would say so.
I would say so.
Not as complicated as a concept, and I think it's been like pinned in the media as. Yeah. I think a lot of time people will look at DEI and label it as one thing, and it's like, okay, well, DEI is a huge umbrella of a million different things that are only there to kind of like help people, succeed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I think even like we're going to touch about this a lot more in we have like a myth section, but I think like I really, really want to preface like DEI is not just about this idea of race or this idea of one group kind of getting more opportunities than another. You can be any race and fall under DEI. It just depends on, I think, your life and what impacts you. And so it is to make life a lot easier for people whose lives aren't easy, whether the system is set up to go against them or things in society aren't accessible to them. It is meant to help them succeed and give them opportunities.
Yeah. And I mean, one analogy that I've used to kind of explain this concept to some of my peers is this idea of like almost like a race. And we're not talking like race like as in like skin color. We're talking as in like an actual physical like running race, you know? And it's this idea of, if you have everybody kind of in line, I guess, for the race, and you're all starting at the same point, but then, you're there, right? Let's say you're in the front, you're right behind the starting line.
Yeah.
And, a person who is disabled is going to be, 10 feet behind you. And let's say a person who is of color and, grew up in, let's say, a poor neighborhood, they're going to be 20 feet behind you and then behind you and behind you. And as these underrepresented groups kind of get a little bit more complicated, you're dealing with things like intersectionality, which is just kind of like an intersection of a bunch of different, inequalities that people may face.
Yeah.
You're kind of being pushed further and further behind this starting line.
Yeah.
And I think the common idea is that, what Sophie was touching on is this idea that, by giving people DEI, like that's the thing you can do, they're giving
like
these
that.
underrepresented groups an advance.
Yes.
Like they're giving them a head start, but it's like, no. DEI is only there to help lessen the gap between the person who's starting right behind that start line and the person who has been unfairly pushed 10 feet behind, 20
Exactly.
feet behind, 30 feet behind.
It's a great way to put
So
it.
even if DEI can push that person so they're only 5 feet behind, if they're only 10 feet behind, or even if, successfully they can start right where you are, right at that start line, then we're in a more equitable society.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think people need to shift their focus from this idea of, they're giving unfair advantages to people and instead think, okay, hey, I've been given an unfair advantage, or certain people in society have been, set up in life right before that start line.
Exactly.
And there's people behind who, didn't do anything to deserve to be back there.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think, from some people's perspectives, especially if, let's say, you're a person who may not be as affected by things that DI would, I guess, cover, you might think, well, it's not my fault that, I was born in this position. And you're right. It actually is not your fault. And it has nothing to do with you personally. It rather has to do with this idea of trying to make our society more equal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see, well, anybody can get a job. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, or, how you live. You can get a job, you can go to school, whatever. That might be true, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Just because it says all are welcome to apply doesn't mean that you will actually be picked.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of circumstances, you'll have, whether it be, especially in the workplace, you'll have two candidates who are very, very, who have the same qualities, who have the same requirements, the same let's say background, right?
Yeah.
Except one, let's say, is a white man and the other, let's say, is a woman of color. You more often will see that white man will be picked for that position over that woman of color. And it's a very subconscious thing that I think people do.
Yeah.
It's not if you do that, then you're automatically racist. That's not what it has to do about. It's a subconscious thing that I think people do. We talked about it a little bit in my sociology class, like this thing called cultural capital.
Okay.
Yeah, and beauty premium. So when cultural capital, it's kind of leaving me the definition. I literally wrote a paper about it like 2 weeks ago. But it's basically this idea of like what attributes do you have to exchange for economic or social opportunities?
Yeah.
Got it.
There you go.
Dr. Samuels will be very proud of me.
Yeah.
And so if, let's say, if you come from a very wealthy family, that's an example of cultural capital. Your race can be a form of cultural capital, so can your gender, things like that. And so even if you've earned your way up there, that is good job. That is for you. But if a woman of color has also done the exact same thing, that white man will be picked because it's a subconscious thing because they'll just believe, well, maybe, he must be the better candidate. Even though the two of them have the exact same resume, he just must be that better candidate. It's a subconscious idea that's honestly been ingrained in society.
For sure, yeah. And you know what, I think we could probably move in kind of into our kind of myth versus reality, because I have a point that I'd like to kind of riff off of there, because one of the common myths about DI is that it only has to do with hiring, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, certain people are getting jobs over me. They're taking things away from me. They're doing this, they're doing that, which we've kind of touched on already, and we've said that's not the case.
Yeah.
But a form of DEI is this idea of kind of employee and employer training, right?
Yep.
So if you have an employer who's looking at two candidates who are very, very similar, and one candidate is, like you said, like a white man, whatever, and the other one, let's say, is a white woman. Like it could be that, close to each other.
Exactly.
That employer may have this kind of preconceived notion, oh, well, I'm going to hire her, she's going to get pregnant in 6 months, and then I'm going to have to pay her for a year without her being here. And it's whether or not that woman is going to choose to actually take, that 1 year off. There is a thing now where there's I forget the name for it.
Maternity leave?
No, but for the man.
Oh, paternity leave.
Paternity
yes,
leave. Yes,
paternity
yes,
leave.
yes. So my apologies.
No, you're good.
But that kind of idea where it's like, like either candidate could, have a child within the next year, but an employer is more than likely going to choose a man over the woman because they assume that the woman will take it instead of the man.
Exactly.
So DEI in a form could be, having employers kind of being trained and try to remove some of these biases that they may previously have. It doesn't mean that they're going to, sit that employer down and go, hey, you have to choose the woman over the man. That's never going to be the case. But it's potentially going to look at them and go, hey, I'm sensing that you have some potential hiring biases. How can we, move into a way that's going to kind of remove that? And that's like one of a very small part of what DEI does on a very large scale.
Exactly.
And it's just another way to prove that it doesn't only have to do with hiring.
Exactly.
So,
and it's really unfortunate because I think it is very easy to kind of get lost in like these different concepts and these words, and I think it's these very simple and I think like progressive policies have kind of been villainized in the media, and I think it's very easy to turn them into dog whistles. And if you guys don't know what dog whistle is, it's basically like buzzwords that people use to kind of get people upset, or like they turn into these words that like people now associate with like, they want to give all these people these different like handouts, and why can't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and so I think like it's been turned into this really, really negative thing when originally its purpose, and still honestly its purpose, is to just help people.
Yeah. It's like again, if you go back to kind of that like race analogy that I was going to, where it's like people are starting at different points, even if everyone is kind of starting at the same point there, if one person is running the race and they have 0 hurdles in front of them, the person who's are left and beyond that have to jump over 10 hurdles and 15 hurdles. So it's just removing some of those barriers that may be put up for other people, and it doesn't mean that you, as like a white person, live an extraordinarily easy life.
No,
I
absolutely
would
not.
never say that.
Absolutely
because
not.
there's a tons of different things that could impact you. But it's just acknowledging the fact that you won't have to jump over certain hurdles that other people have to.
Yeah.
So why not level the playing field a little bit more?
And even just to kind of give a final example, or if you have one as well, even as two women of color, we are still privileged enough to our parents have money, and we still lived in a suburb, right? And so somebody who has a lower socioeconomic status than us, they would get more opportunities than me, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. Or somebody who isn't able-bodied, they should get more. Yes, they absolutely should, because you know what? They have had a harder life than I have.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be other opportunities. As much as I might be disadvantaged, I know I'll still have more opportunities than they will.
That person, yeah.
And so it's just kind of about being empathetic and kind of putting yourself in that person's shoes. Imagine what they have to go through.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of wrap that up. I think that's a very good sentiment. Empathy, people.
Empathy,
Let's
y'all.
learn it. But we kind of have to just run through this second area here because we do have a little surprise potentially coming in shortly. But we would like to share kind of why we wanted to talk about DEI today and kind of the relevance of it, because I'm sure you guys are all hearing the word DEI more than you. Like, a lot of people didn't even know what it was. Yeah. And now it's all in the media.
Boom, boom, boom.
So as we know, or as I hope most of you guys know, there was a plane collision that happened in D.C. on January 30th.
Goodness,
It was a tragedy. It killed 67 people. Rest in peace to
horrifying.
everyone there. It was very horrible to hear about.
Yeah.
And it was, I believe, the deadliest plane crash in the United States since 2001. So it was a very difficult time, and obviously, it took the media by a storm because everyone was like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on? They're looking for answers. And it was between an American Airlines regional jet and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. Yeah. So they're looking at that and they're going, okay, what happened in Washington, D.C., around that area? So obviously they're looking at the president of the United States.
The federal government.
And they're going, kind of, can you give us some answers on what happened? And this is kind of where, it took an interesting turn because what was such a horrible tragedy and should have been investigated, I think, properly right off the bat before anyone making statements, kind of turned into Donald Trump standing up and making the implication that DEI was the reason for the crash, and that, they just give jobs to whoever, we can't let anyone be, a pilot, and then went on a long rant about the dangers of DEI and this and that. And it's like, okay, you're taking a tragedy that killed many people and that, there were serious problems that happened and blaming it on a policy that, one, had nothing to do with it, and two, is used to benefit people in the way that we've spent so long kind of talking about today.
Can I actually read some of his quotes?
For sure, please.
So we have some of his quotes. So he, like Raquel said, he did he addressed the nation.
Yeah.
And, he was talking to reporters and giving an update about this. And one of the statements that I found very interesting was he stated, "We have to have our smartest people as air traffic controllers," Trump said. "It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. They have to be talented, naturally talented, geniuses. Can't have regular people doing their job. We can't have regular people doing this job. They won't be able to do it, but will restore faith in American air travel." Now, if that's one of the only things he said, I honestly read that and I was like, that's okay. He's right. You do need very skilled individuals, especially as air traffic controllers, especially as pilots. You need skilled people in these jobs.
Yes.
So you have a point, Mr. President. I agree with you, actually. Yes. However, he kept going.
Yeah.
as he does.
Yeah.
And so he says, quote, "It just could have been," when he was asked whether he believed the crash was a result of diversity hiring.
Yes.
And then the next comment that actually took me, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
He said, quote, "A group within the FAA determined that the workforce was too white. Then they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately," he added. This was in the Obama administration.
Yeah.
What the hell has to do with the fact that 67 people have just lost their lives, the fact that there are 67 families and loved ones and friends who have just lost people closest to them?
Yeah.
And you have the audacity to get up there and get on a national platform and basically say, they lost their lives because a bunch of unqualified people
took jobs that they didn't deserve.
Exactly.
And it's just it's very funny well, it's not funny. It's something that should wake everyone up.
You should be scared.
In hearing, it's very odd to me how President Donald Trump kind of handled the entire situation. Yeah. I know at one point somebody went up to him and was like, "Oh, well, are you going to visit the plane crash site?" And he went, "What, God. Do you want me to go swimming?" Are you crazy?
Are you sick?
You know what it reminded me of? When Blake Lively, someone went up to her during that whole trial and was like, "Oh, what do you want to do if somebody, wants to talk to you about domestic violence?" And she's like, "What do you want me to do? Give them my phone number?"
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me, what's the site? The water?
Or to meet with the first responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that, but I will be meeting with some people that were very badly hurt.
Really going to want to talk to you. This movie is going to affect people and they're going to want to tell you about their lives. So if someone understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you, what's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Asking for my address or my phone number or my location share. Or I could just location share you and then we could
Why am I able to compare Blake Lively, who got married on a plantation, first of all, to President Donald Trump when talking about an actual serious tragedy? Because those are parallels.
They are very
and it's
parallels.
Crazy to me that he doesn't take it seriously.
It's why are you being sarcastic when people have just died?
And then you're taking a situation, and then you notice he'll say, "Oh, it may have been." He's implying this.
Yeah.
You're coming out with zero knowledge of the pilot, who was not a DEI hire, nor was it a woman or any of these things that people said.
Yeah.
And turning a tragedy into a way to scare people.
That is
You're
disgusting.
using it and then you're going, "Hey guys, I know all these people died. You should be scared too because all these racialized people, all these women, all these, minorities are taking your jobs." And
That's disgusting.
that it's just not, it's taking away from what actually happened.
I agree.
And what actually happened, obviously there's a lot of details that we don't super know about, but I would like to bring everyone's attention to a lot of policy changes that actually Donald Trump himself made before this crash. Now, we're not saying this is what caused the crash. We're not saying anything like that. But it is important for us and important for you as viewers to read the media and go, okay, this is what happened. This is what the president said. Let me look outside of that scope and ask some questions and see maybe what else could have possibly added to the danger that happened in air flight safety and control recently.
Exactly.
So there's been a few changes that Donald Trump has made since the inauguration. The first is that he fired the head of the TSA, which is the Transport Security Administration. Also, as some of you guys may be more familiar with, is he did institute a federal hiring freeze.
Yes.
So he halted the hiring of all air traffic controllers when the FAA had already been short-staffed.
Yep.
I know at some point I'd seen like some quote about how there was only 2 people in charge of like a certain area or something, and they were begging for more, and they had cut that, so it was only one person in charge. And I was like, okay. He also fired everyone in the aviation safety panel, so it only exists in names, allegedly. There's no members who are currently there. And I thought I'd bring up a little quote from X that I found that kind of highlighted all of this, but was just so bizarre to me. And that's how I kind of knew, like, this has to do with DI. We have to talk about this today.
Exactly.
And a quote says, on your second day, you fired the head of Transportation Security Administration, fired the entire Aviation Security Advisory Committee, froze hiring of all air traffic controllers, and then fired 100 top FAA security officers.
That is wild to me.
And it's just so bizarre because it's like, why do we have to dig for that kind of information when it's like, obviously we're looking at the President of the United States who we don't know, but could have been involved in, this crash because he had fired all these necessary people that, control air safety. And then you're taking that, and then to avoid blame on yourself, you're blaming it on minorities. In a program that helps?
Exactly.
Like, I'm just a little bit confused. It's not unusual.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
But it's just disappointing.
It is.
Because it's like as well as the way he's attacking everything, it's like you're trying to what's it called? Personify DEI.
Yeah.
Basically
like it's a person.
Like it's a person. It's like not.
Yeah.
It's like, this idea that like, DEI is to blame. How? You can't even, I don't even think you can spell DEI, if I'm being completely honest. Tell me how this like, it's a system, it's policies. Like, tell me what specific policy that you believe led to this crash, because I could tell you five things that you've done that have basically led to this crash.
Yeah.
And it's like, even further than this plane crash that happened in January, now there's been what? You said 16?
I don't know if that's an accurate number, but there's been a lot.
A lot more plane incidents and crashes that have been happening.
That have all been with U.S. aircraft.
Exactly. These aircraft or on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening.
No.
You guys were the gold standard for safety. Why is this happening now?
Yeah, and you can't blame it on DI, which has been it's been a thing for years.
For years.
You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
I don't know. But we, are not experts
No.
on pilot safety and aviation. However, we do have a guest that we wanted to introduce today. Now, this podcast is all about students and learning and all that stuff. So we have a student coming in today. Welcome. Come on in.
Round of applause.
Come take a seat. All right. Okay, all right. So today we have a special treat for you guys. Our very first Let's Talk About It guest. There's many more to come. But today we have somewhat of a let's say a specialist in training on aviation and someone who is going to provide a little bit of input onto our topic today. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of tell us what you do, what you study?
Sure. My name is Rodway. I'm currently attending Seneca Polytechnic for aviation. So I'm getting my bachelor's of technology, and then I'm also getting my ATPL license, my airline license.
Awesome. Okay, and
do you actually want to shift over just a little bit? Sorry, I just want to make sure you're good in the frame.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. So you're in your second year now out of a 4-year program. What can you tell us kind of about air traffic control and like why it's important to pilot safety?
ATC in general is just for like heavily populated aerodromes. So like, for example, Oshawa has an ATC tower. And then based off of how busy it is, it's considered, different control zones. So Class C, Class D, based off of how busy it is. So for example, Class D, you'd need like to establish two-way radio communication. And then Class C, you'd need like an actual clearance to be allowed inside. So, but the general idea is just basically to manage traffic inside of a area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you've mentioned already you're at Seneca right now. It is quite an exclusive program. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about like how many students get in each year?
Yeah, it's pretty exclusive in terms of like how many people they're allowing in. Like for example, like our year we admitted, I think it was like roughly 110, and then now we have 40 or 35 or 40 students. in our year, and then in the total of every year, like the last 4 years, probably like 120 people on campus.
Oh my goodness.
So it's not a lot of people like compared to like your guys' program or anything like that.
For sure,
Right.
for sure. So obviously you're only in your second year now. What can you tell us about the process of hiring for to become a pilot into an airline?
For hiring, like the general idea is you get your license, obviously, your ATPL license, and then you might have to instruct for a couple years. Certain airlines have certain hour requirements. For example, like if you were to try and hire at Jazz or like Sunwing, they have a lot lower requirements than like, let's say, Air Canada or somebody like that. And there's always basically on the industry there's different numbers you would need. So like let's say in 2025 Jazz might need 450 hours, whatever the number is. But in general, you need 1,500 hours to write your ATPL. Okay. But integrated programs like Seneca, so programs you do schooling and you do flight training at the same time, we're allowed to get these things called it's like a frozen ATPL. So like we can write the exam, pass, technically get it, and then we would come out of the program with like 300 hours, and then we can get hired at an airline, and then once we reach 1,500 hours, we get our license. So it's the same thing. But if you're not in an integrated program, you'd need to just instruct until you have 1,500 hours and then write your exams.
Oh my goodness.
Could you give us maybe like a timeline? Like how long would it take probably for someone to become a pilot and let's say a captain? Like
a captain of like, let's say,
of an
okay,
airline
let's say,
such as
let's say like a
Yeah.
captain of like, I don't know, Air Canada,
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what path you go. I'll just say for me example. So first it would take you obviously 4 years to get your degree. And then you'd have to get 1,500 hours, which would take roughly 5 years. Let's say you're doing that primarily just instructing. If you're doing it privately, it would take you longer because obviously you have to pay for all the hours.
Right.
So to even get your license, it'd be 1,500 hours, and then even then again, they might not hire you at 1,500.
Oh my god.
but
so-
like if we for like say like an average for someone to become a captain,
Yeah.
if we're looking at already 4 years of
Yeah,
years of
so
school,
for 4 years,
of-
let's say, I'd say, and then obviously once you get into an airline, you have to be a first officer first, so like a co-pilot, and then work away at that stuff. So I'd say it takes roughly 5 years of flying, just training, and then like 5. So I'd say like a decade, probably
decade.
to become like a captain.
Yeah.
It would probably be a decade.
Oh my goodness.
And then that's not even considered like because Air Canada is a pretty prestigious one, like obviously because they're international. So it might take even longer than a decade. I'd say that's 10 years could be for like for a captain for Jazz or something.
Yeah.
I did find a quote, and this was from a pilot who actually worked for Spirit Airlines. He was a friend of the captain who was in the plane crash in D.C. And I wanted to read you a quote and just kind of get your thoughts on it, see if it compares in any capacity to kind of what you've been telling us already about your training. So the quote goes, you don't just show up and become captain of an airline. You have to earn it through seniority and through rigorous training. You are responsible for people's lives. And then he goes on to talk about how he doesn't know of any pilot in the industry who has been strictly hired because of DEI. Would you say that, the statement is accurate that he's made, and how would you compare that to your training today?
Yeah, like I think I agree with that stuff. Like you can't really, like aviation is one of those programs, one of those industries where it's like all the tests and stuff are standardized. So for someone to say like, oh, like it's DI or whatever, it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's like if they were let into whatever program or whatever based off of that stuff, like what they're claiming, they would just fail the tests.
Right.
Yeah.
Like straight up, they just wouldn't.
be good.
They just wouldn't
be
pass.
good.
You have to pass so many. You have to pass so many like pre-exams and exams. Like just in case, just for Seneca, like as an example, you'd have to pass like a written exam, and we had to do our own. So it's like a Seneca written. So we take like the private license made by Transport Canada.
Okay.
But before we can even write that, we have to write the Seneca PPL, which is like a jacked up version. And so it's like you have to pass the Seneca PPL and then the Transport Canada written, and then you'd have to go do your oral flight test, your check ride, pass all these, do all this stuff, navigation, all the slow flight, all this stuff, and that's just for private license. And then you have to go and do the same thing for your commercial, and then you have to do the same thing for your ATPL. So and then once you even get in that position where you're like, okay, I made it, I'm a first officer, it's like there's recurrency that you have to take. So you have to do 5 landings every 6 months, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And then every 2 years you have to do attend recurrency training, so like some kind of safety seminar, something like that.
So this is not something that somebody could just
do.
No, you can't do that. And then also you have to you might get switched aircrafts and stuff like that. You need to, like, for example, you could be flying a Cessna 172 and then you have to fly like a Baron B-58 for that's what we do. So but you'd have to relearn that an entirely new aircraft, right?
And how to
so
fly
you can't just kind of BS your way through anything.
Yeah.
Like it's like you have to know your shit to like do it. It's not.
This is a lot of really, really good information.
Well, no, I was gonna say also, like, Kyle doesn't like to brag, but I mean, like, his program, like, for Seneca, obviously there's not that many, like, flight programs in Canada, but Seneca would be, like, the best one there.
Yeah.
But even there, you're having, like, he started off with, like, 100 students, I think, who got in,
110.
and they're down, 110, you're down to 35, 40 students.
You've cut over 50, close to
Yeah.
60.
Like, pretty much everyone out of the program, and it's, like, in that kind of scenario, do you really think the people who are left there after doing all the tests are only there because of DEI?
DEI?
Like,
no.
because of all this testing and everything there, you know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult for people to just get handouts in a program like this, which just makes Trump's comments a little bit
Yeah.
unnecessary.
And I wanted to like throw like just like a question at you, but the statement's not a question, right?
Yeah.
Like even let's say there is all these DEI policies, which there are. Like in Canada,
Yeah.
like there are equitable policies. The people who are hired for things like air traffic control and flight safety, again, even pilots,
Yep.
they would all, regardless of their background, who they are, their skin color, their gender, whatever, they all have the same requirements that are necessary for the job. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing about. That's why I'm like think when you say that it's like because of DI or whatever Trump's blaming it on. It's like to blame like an accident on democratic policies is kind of insane. But just because that has nothing to do with it. Like it's purely pilot decision making. They all passed the same test. They all did the same stuff. Obviously, one's a helicopter, one's an airline, but they all had to pass standardized tests, and one's military, so it's probably more rigorous. I don't know about that stuff, but
Yeah. That's kind of all we have to talk about today when it has to do with DEI and about the DC plane crash. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
We are going to keep Kyle around for the rest of the episode here. We have a couple more topics that we want to touch on.
Yep.
We're still on track to chat about everything.
I hope so.
Okay, all right. All right, we are starting our next segment for today. Our Let's Kiki is going to be a little bit different this week because we do have our guest. And we got a little bit of help from the viewers for this one.
Yes, we did. We asked you guys on Instagram.
Yeah. Now, what some of you may not know is that the man to my left,
She went.
listen, I didn't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
Is a man of many trades. Yes, he's a pilot in training. He is also my boyfriend of 4 years. Tricked you guys.
Tricked you.
So yeah, we thought it'd be kind of fun. Sophie thought it would be like a good idea to reach out and ask you guys if you had any questions about relationships or
Why not? We got a
anything.
couple on.
It's the month of love.
It's a month of Valentine's Day was last week.
Yes, so
this is so cute.
it's very cute. So we came to you guys. We asked some questions on both our Instagram and on our private Instagrams. Go follow
sir.
that. And
I'll plug it up top.
Yes, yeah. Go follow that. And you can be involved in our next episode, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
And yeah. So we'll just go
Let's
over a few
start.
questions. Kyle doesn't know any of these.
No, we're surprising them with
We're
it.
surprising with all the questions. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. You want me to ask the first one?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so the question is, what's your opinion on taking breaks in a relationship?
that's nonsense.
I agree.
if you're taking breaks in a relationship, you need to break up.
Oh,
I have told him this so many times because I believe it to my soul.
Yeah, no,
But
I believe
there
that
are
too.
exceptions. Like I do get
Yeah.
it. Like in certain, I don't know, because I've seen it work for some people. Like some of my really close friends, it's worked for them. Whatever. I think just personally, and I think for us, in my head, it's just kind of like, well, like I just don't get it. Like just figure it out.
yeah.
Here's my thing: is like if you're going on a break, there's like
You have
there's
issues.
two reasons: either you're toxic or you're going to.
Oh,
Am I allowed to curse?
yeah, I'll leave it. I'll
Okay.
leave it. Don't worry. You can't say no. He can cuss. He can cuss. He can cuss. It's your social media image. so
What
I
I've
think it's
heard is
fine.
that what I've heard is that if you're going on a break,
We'll believe it
it's
for
going
sure.
you're
We'll
going to go sleep with somebody else. But like you shouldn't have to take a break. Like you should just be able to communicate and fix the problem.
Right.
So in my opinion, if you have to like stop talking to each other for like a week,
Yeah.
like I think there's deeper
Yeah, to
issues.
prove that you still like each other. Like that's what gets me. There's a
Yeah.
difference between breaking up and getting back together versus, hey, let's stop talking for a week and see if I miss you. That to
Yeah.
me is crazy.
Ooh, okay, well, what
about you?
Let me, okay, because I would, in most situations, say, like you guys, no. However, I think it's fair there are a handful of situations where I'm like, that's fair.
Okay.
And, like, when I think about it, like, I'm talking about, like, breaks, not like, oh, well, let's see if we still miss each other. Like, that, yeah, that's stupid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But more so in, like, I think especially, like, as you get older, like, and maybe this is just me because I'm older now, so I'm going to be dating, whatever. I feel like if you are getting suffocated, maybe you're around this person a little bit too much. Like maybe you just need a few days. Maybe you're not mentally like all there, or like, you know, you're having some issues, whatever. I think it is sometimes fair to go, okay, you know what? I know I'm not communicating well. I know right now I'm not reacting well. That's not your fault. It's not my fault. There's an external issue. I think we need some space. Let me go figure out my stuff, or maybe there's something that we're constantly fighting about an issue. Let's take some space to figure out that issue and both come back and go, okay, what did we learn from like thinking about that separately from having to talk to you guys all the time? I think if that was the break you took, that's fair. But I don't think you should be doing it constantly.
That's crazy.
I know couples who like took constant multiple breaks. I think if you're doing that, you just either can't communicate properly, or again, like you said, you're toxic. Then just break up.
Then just break up. You're just wasting my time.
You're wasting both your time.
That kind of goes into our second question. I'll read that one out, and it's how should couples go about dealing with both constant fighting or unhealthy disagreements? This one I feel like is like a short answer. Like just talk to them,
communicate.
Bro. Like, communicate. What do you think?
It's pretty like self-explanatory.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like listen, Kyle and I have been together for a very, very long time. Like we started dating when we were 15 years old. It's not very common that we're having like reoccurring arguments or things like that. But if you're having a situation where your partner's coming to you and going, hey, this is what I'm upset about, or something like this, either find a way to fix it, or maybe you do need to start, you know, separating or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because some issues are very easily solvable. People just don't want to put in the effort to do so. Yep. And I think it's hard for people to get vulnerable, sit down and talk about, you know, hey, this is why I'm upset. This is why you're upsetting me. Let's figure it out. Let's fix it. And then that ends relationships. Because it's like you guys just don't want to sit down and talk about it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it's unfixable. Break up.
Break up, because then you will find your next partner.
Yeah,
so
why are you fighting all the time?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. I could see if it's a reoccurring thing, like if it's the same issue like over and over and over again, then it's like, okay, then address it, obviously.
Yeah.
But if it's like you're just like arguing over like small things that like realistically don't really matter. Yeah. It's like, okay, like
just a relationship.
What's the actual issue? And then if there isn't an issue, then like maybe just break up, because it's like
maybe
what
it's not
doing?
Compatible. You're just not compatible at the end of the day.
That
agreed.
Is very fair. Do you want to move on to the third question?
Yeah, third question for you guys. How does one balance long distance or keeping the spark alive after dating for a very long time? And then do you want me to say the sub-question?
Yeah, sure.
And then the sub-question to that is, are frequent dates important in this question?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing with long distance is effort. Like if you're putting in effort, it doesn't really matter. And then like keeping the spark alive. I think just like making sure that you're still doing like little surprises or whatever. Don't just like stop doing it once you
romance. Keep the romance.
Keep the romance thing.
You don't want to
going
get too comfortable.
And then also like it's weird to say, but like continue to pursue them even if you're still dating them. Like act like you're, you know what I mean? Like be like, oh, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
she's like, like
I'm
don't so well.
I mean, like don't like let them become your roommate type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Keep physical stuff and
just a body that's there.
Like don't make them like your roommate. What else?
These are some good advice.
No, I agree. On the like point about frequent dates, like I've told this to Sophie before, like when sometimes like Kyle will call me and be like, hey hon, like do you want to go on a date tomorrow? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, yes I do. Because it's like it's just the effort of him calling, like, yeah, well, why don't we go get a movie and dinner tomorrow night? Like, we're just started dating. And it's like that kind of thing, like, gets you excited.
Yeah,
and then
so
I go and I get really, like, dressed up and all excited for a nice date. And it's like, it's
you feel
nice.
You feel the innocence again.
Yeah, because I feel like when you're in a long-term relationship, and even if you're doing long distance, whatever, it sometimes feels like, okay, well, this is my partner. Like, I consider Kyle my partner. And you know what I mean? Like, we're in life together. But it's like you also want to feel like you have a crush on them still.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Your partner should still be flirting with you and doing these kind of things that makes it still exciting. Like, I've never been bored in my relationship with Kyle, and we've been together for 4 years. So it's like, I feel like that's something that can be easily fixed through some of the things that Kyle was saying also.
I'm going to bleep this out, but also
yeah.
Like,
that will help.
What was that thing?
PG.
I'm leaving that.
Yeah. Okay.
We're getting to some of our juicier questions.
Questions. More hot take questions.
More hot take.
The rest were easy.
Okay. You want me to say it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Question is, Can we take partners back after they cheat?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no.
I think that's just like it's like, well, you have to well, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it doesn't. It's like, if they're going to look for somebody else for like attention or whatever it is, it's cooked. Because like
You're cooked.
You're cooked because it's like
Yeah.
you're gonna like, even if you do work it out or whatever, and the person forgives you and all that nonsense, it's like if they're like late like 15 minutes to something, you're like, oh, like what are they doing? Or they don't,
like you don't trust them.
you're gonna stop trying. Yeah,
yes,
sorry. That's
yes,
just like that's just a weird way of saying it.
No,
But like
that's
you're not gonna trust them.
I
Like,
got it.
oh, like let's say
She got it.
like let's say you call their phone and like they don't answer, and then they don't text you back for like 4 hours, 5 hours. You're like, oh, what are they doing? Like,
Yeah,
are
what
they
are they
cheating on me
doing?
again? It's like you're just cooked. And then also have some self-respect. Like if someone's,
lie.
you know what I mean?
I agree. I mean, some of y'all don't want to hear this.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Some
like,
of you guys need to hear this.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because it's really sick, especially in university. You see how common it is that people are just cheating on each other. So like,
oh my
like
God.
flamboyantly, they're happy about it too. They're
Yeah.
open about it. No one really cares. And it's
Yeah.
just like, for me, not only are you ruining this relationship in the sense you said where you're going to have this distress, but you're going to have distress in all of your other relationships moving forward. At least it's going to be a little bird in your ear being like, okay, well, the last one cheated on you, whatever. Okay, what's stopping the next one from doing that to you?
Yeah.
And unless you kind of cut that off as soon as it happens, you kind of convince yourself that you're okay with it in a
Yeah,
certain
exactly.
sense also. And I think that just, like, you don't deserve that. No one deserves to be cheated on in any capacity.
That's fair.
So taking someone back, first of all, they're going to do it again.
High chance.
They
Yeah,
usually do.
very high chance.
But now you're not setting yourself up for success in this relationship or in future relationships.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with the both of you. Like, like you said, I feel like it's just so open nowadays. Like, my high school, oh my God, everybody was cheating on each other. Crazy high school.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But like, no, I think cheating is actually one of the worst things you can do to a person that you're in a relationship with. Like, aside from assaulting them, like I think.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's
jeez.
true. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was really my bad, guys. But like, no, but it's true. Like, I think cheating, like, nothing. I get physically ill, like, thinking about it sometimes, because I'm just
Me
like,
too.
it's so disrespectful. It's such a disrespectful act to cheat on somebody when you could have easily, if your needs aren't being met, leave.
Yeah.
Leave. Like, you can just leave. And it's like, I mean, and I don't respect the well, I was drunk, whatever, I was intoxicated. I don't care.
No, me neither.
I know for a fact that when you're in a relationship and you actually like somebody, that person's on your mind 24/7, or at least a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So when you're out and you're partying without that person, they should be on your mind, nobody else. A person coming up to you and trying to flirt with you, immediately shut that shit down. What are you doing?
I
like,
don't know.
it's actually so sick to me.
It's almost shameful.
It is so shameful.
I'm scared.
Absolutely not. So, like, I just think you should, again, like you said, have self-respect. And I just, like, you really should respect yourself. If that person's doing that to you, get up and leave. Get up and leave, because they don't respect you. At the end of the day, they don't respect you.
You guys
Yeah.
are strong, independent individuals. I believe in you.
I believe in you.
Please leave.
Just leave.
if you need to.
Just leave.
I think the biggest issue is it's kind of normalized in social media now.
So
It's like,
normalized.
oh, like, like all these TikToks about it and stuff like that. It's like kind of
Yeah, and then brag about it.
They-
too.
It's
It's like, come on. What are you doing?
Bring back shame.
Bring back shame. Oh my goodness.
Lock
Bring back
in.
real men. Oh my
Lock
God.
in.
Lock in.
Okay. It's
the last one, right?
Yeah, the last one we wanted to touch on is a question. Wait, hold on. Sorry.
Does she
It's
have
a
it?
question, and it is, would we recommend dating young?
I'll let you guys go, because I have a whole prepared answer.
Okay. So you can go first if
You
you'd
can go
like.
first.
Okay,
Ooh.
well, Kyle and I are slightly different. Kyle has like dated previously kind of before we got together, but I'm going to come at it from someone who started dating at 15, wasn't allowed till 16. Shout out mom for letting
out
me,
mom, bruh.
go a year early, but I wasn't in any kind of relationship until then. I really held this mentality that I was going to date to marry, or I was just dating to break my own heart, and I was like, why would I hurt my own feelings like that? So in my head, I was like, I'm going to wait. But then, like something just kind of came across me. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, like, cool, Kyle's here, like, whatever. And it wasn't something I expected, but, once I was in it, I was like, you know what? Like, this is good.
Yeah.
Oh, clearly it was. We've been here 4 years later. But I do think now, sitting here at 19, turning 20 this year, I'm, reviewing all the years that I've had with him and dating so young. And I think it was a good thing for me personally. It added a level of support that I wasn't getting in other areas of my life. It was someone who I could rely on through like very difficult and forming years of my life. It also allowed us to kind of grow with each other. So like as two people who are very, very different, now we've kind of like grown to like certain things together. We've experienced different things together. There's things in my life that I've gotten to experience with him that I wouldn't otherwise have gotten the chance to do.
Yeah.
So those are positives. I don't see any negatives. I think dating before 16, even I'll say, is where I'm like, nah. Like I think you're a little too young. But in the high school years, kind of growing up, if you're finding a partner who truly loves you and is that right person for you, and you've waited, the way I waited, and you're waiting to find someone that you think you could genuinely marry, it's not a bad thing.
No.
I think it could be a beautiful thing, and high school sweethearts and all these things. But there is, that other side to it where you're like, okay, well, there is age that's too young. Yeah. And I think it is right where I was. You know what I mean? A little bit earlier, I would have been like, no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Like, I think it's good to get experience in a certain way. Like,
Oh my God.
I think it's good to get experience. Not necessarily. It doesn't not like in that sense when she's rolling her eyes at me. But
Yeah.
I what I mean is like how to handle certain situations in terms of like problems. I think like having experience, and then Raquel's new to it, so it's like when we would have problems, I feel like I'd be able to kind of communicate a bit better and manage it a bit better, and kind of lead us in like a better direction in general.
Yeah.
Because like it's not like we're both experiencing like this problem for the first time. It's like, okay, I can kind of help her figure that out. But yeah, I have no problem with it. I think, yeah, like what she's saying, like there is an age where it's like, okay, like if you're like 14,
ease it up now.
Yeah, but if you're like 16 and like you like them and there's no problems, then it's like it's just a support system, like she said. Then and there's no reason not to go with that person. I don't think.
It's a very good perspective.
Your thoughts?
Okay. Okay, so like obviously like everyone knows, I said this in the first episode, like I like chronically single, whatever. I'm single. I've never had a boyfriend before. And I want to make it very clear that's a conscious choice that I make.
Yeah.
I went through high school and like I watched a lot of my friends kind of get boyfriends and do the whole thing. And I mean, it's not as if I never wanted to. I did, but at the same time, I also had enough respect for myself to not want to put myself through what I again saw as unnecessary heartbreak.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys in my school would have done that. Oh my God, they were disgusting.
It was a bad
Shout y'all out.
Yeah, they were
they were
wild.
horrible. And so even entering like first year, like it was kind of like, oh, okay, like this might be my time, whatever. But I'm really, really, really glad that I haven't dated anyone yet. Okay. I am, because I think it's made me understand some key things about myself that I think I either wouldn't have understood if I had a boyfriend early on, or I think would have been pushed until we broke up, and then I healed myself, and then I had to learn those things.
Yeah, that happens.
And so, like, I feel like when you're going, you have a lot of life to live.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have a lot of life to be single, and I think that's something you actually really should cherish. You have your 30s, and even your 20s. You have your 20s and your 30s to kind of like be in a relationship and to test that out, and then to be married and have kids and whatnot and be with your partner until you die. But you don't have a lot of time to really, really be single, or at least understand what that is and then enjoy that. And I think you should just enjoy being single a little bit, and learn some key things about yourself and about life. And I think the three things that I've really, really understood as I'm single is the importance of memories and being present, the importance of friendships, and the importance of self-love and self-respect.
Of course, yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of situations where I could have been like, you know what, I'm gonna date this guy, whatever, even fairly recently.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have respected myself if I had.
Yeah.
I really had to understand that. I wouldn't have. And so now it's like, I think a lot of people growing up were like, oh, Sophie, you have like high standards. And it's like, I didn't back then. I absolutely do now.
Yeah.
And the reason why I do is because I love myself and I know what I provide to other people and I would provide in a relationship. So I expect the exact same thing of you.
Yeah.
Why the hell would I settle? And I think sometimes when you date young, you end up settling.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. I know we missed out on Media of the Week, but we have kind of a bigger topic for Media Week. We were going to talk about it this week, but there's so much new content coming in every day that we kind of want to summarize it all and talk about it kind of a little bit longer.
So hopefully next week, yeah.
So that'll be that. thank you to everyone who participated in our Instagram.
Thank you for answering our question.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing this a little bit more in the
Yeah.
future, especially when we have guests. If there's things that you guys want to know,
We'd love to answer them.
we would love to answer those questions. They'd love to answer those
I
questions
know.
for you.
Goodness.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
We're going to go get sushi after this.
Oh,
so
aren't you excited?
I'm very excited.
Well, thank you
yeah.
guys again, and we'll see you next week. Peace, FamJam.
Peace out, FamJam.
Yo, slash. I'ma go hit from the back, and I keep me a Mac in my backpack. If a nigga want smoke, he can have that. Fashion know when Jesus make a ass fat. Say you shooting shit up at this rat cat. Got a brand new whip, but I crashed that. Shorty saw me too good, pay the cash app.